What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast presented by Basketball Society. I am one half of the dynamic duo here, Dwayne Marcus, and I have the unique honor, the privilege, and the pleasure of being joined by a very special guest on the show today. She is one of 4 active head coaches in the country to have won a national championship. She is the all-time winningest head coach in Maryland women's basketball history. The one, the only, Brenda Frese is joining the show today, and we could not be more excited. So please stay locked in, stay tapped in, because Protect Our Queens starts now.
Protect our queens.
Do you practice this? Was this spur of the moment?
They put the ether beat on this.
I started paying attention to women's basketball in a way that I never had before.
In and out, crossover, she has all that in her bag.
I just think that Paige is more well-rounded on both sides of the ball.
It's all about her feel for the game, bro.
All of these girls seem like a WA guy that got a turnaround fade in the paint.
We don't need 7 games. We didn't need 6 games. We didn't need 5 games. 4.
Hi there, Coach. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. Obviously, I know it's about to get ramp up for you. Portal season started. So I know you've got a lot of things going on. So I appreciate you for coming on with me. How has it been for you? I guess since the season's ended, like you've had a little bit of downtime relatively. I know you guys have been on a lot of interviews because of a viral moment you had with Oluchi, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But what's it been like for you since the season ended?
Yeah, well, downtime, I think that doesn't happen until May when, we after our kids leave campus and their finals. Yeah. But, it's different. You wrap up, meetings with your players and get them ready for the spring and the postseason. Nowadays it's, meetings to be able to see who's coming back and who will be going into the portal. Then your, Monday opens up the portal. Obviously, there's been a lot of names that have already kind of come out that players. So you're really kind of assessing your own roster, what your strengths are, where you feel like you can maybe pick up some players in the portal. And Monday it'll be even greater hair on fire. You got to get on the phone with, however many of hundreds of thousands of kids will be in the portal, and then you move really quickly.
You've been a part of Maryland, a part of women's basketball just in general for quite some time now. And the transfer portal has definitely been it's always been a thing. But over the past couple of years, it's really changed. And it's become like a completely different beast and a completely different monster. How has just the evolution of the transfer portal, again, just affected not just your, I guess, in-season work, but your out of season work, this time between seasons? What has the off season tended to look like for you now compared to what it used to maybe 5-10 years ago?
Yeah. It's gotten a lot harder, clearly, your March and April kind of, where at the end of your season, you're probably more tired from a long season is probably ramped up to be the hardest. I think you use the proper word, beast, that, you're spending, just a lot of hours, quick turnarounds, to be able to fill your roster. And, every coach, it's our new normal and, for our student athletes as well. But I think we've all kind of learned how to adapt and change around it and just be as prepared as you can as a staff.
This year for you guys was what I believe is the 16th year in a row that you guys have punched a ticket to the dance in the NCAA tournament. And you talked a lot about just how proud you were of this team. I mean, 8 new players, Oluchi coming in from Duke, Yarden coming over from Indiana, and you guys are still in the tournament, and you still are in a game that a couple things go your way. You're talking about a trip to yet another Sweet 16. Can you just kind of talk about how impressed you are with just the journey that the players took, but also the coaching that had to be done over the course of the season for you guys to get to where you guys were this year?
Well, you just alluded to it. A lot of change with 8 new players and so many young freshmen within that roster. And, then we got hit with the injury bug. So, I think, for us as a staff, it was an incredible journey just with, this is what sports teaches you is just real life. When you get hit with a lot of different factors, how are you going to respond? And just, it was a joy to be able to coach this team. I mean, they just hung together. They believed. They were so much fun to go into every single day and coach. They were hungry. They wanted to get better. And there was a stretch at one point in the season. You didn't even know if they were going to make the NCAA tournament in the postseason, but a credit to them. And again, we're leading the way with the freshman point guards that, their first time going through conference play against really experienced rosters. So I thought they just did a tremendous job. And, I'm glad, the staff that I've put together, we've been together, 6, 7, 8 years together. So just, a lot of continuity that I can really lean in on our staff, within the journey.
You talk about that staff. This is a staff that has been highlighted a couple different times over the course of the year by a number of different places, because you guys have an all women's coaching staff. What is the importance of that to you, to be the head coach of a women's basketball program, a prominent women's basketball program in the country led by all women? How important is that for you?
Well, it's really evolved. And, I'll say with every hire that I've made, it's just been the right fit. And I think what's really cool is for our players, someone that looks like them, someone that's played, at a level, they've all played at different levels, low to mid to high. And so they're super relatable. And I love the fact that our players get to see, strong female role models. Some of them are juggling families and kids, and they're in this high profile of an assistant coaching position, and they're all there for them. I think it's a top down when you talk about from a leadership end and just what each and every one brings. I mean, their intentions are fully on our student athletes and bringing out the best that we possibly can.
You know how I know you don't really love basketball? Because you're not subscribed to Basketball Society yet. We might be the only platform talking men's and women's hoops with the same energy. There's no agendas over here, just genuine hoops talk. From the Basketball Society podcast to Protect Our Queens, we've got it all. So to prove you really love this game, subscribe to Basketball Society now. We talked a little bit about the portal earlier, and not to do any home cooking, but by my estimation, one of the best transfers of the year was Oluchi Okananwa from Duke, obviously, to Maryland, and kind of how she was able to impact you guys this season. Can you kind of talk about what that process was like for you, and like what the conversations were with getting Oluchi to come over from Duke to Maryland?
Well, the conversations happen fast I liken the portal to speed dating. So, fortunately for us, there were, a lot of times when kids go in the portal and you have those initial phone calls, there's a history. And we had that with Oluchi. She was someone that we recruited. We had some phone calls out of high school. I knew her high school coach extremely well from recruiting Aaliyah Boston. We had become really good friends. We had just really connected through Aaliyah. And so, it was a really easy conversation. And, it was her first phone call, and we just clicked right away. And, these things move fast. You have a phone call, you get to campus, and, the rest is history. But, I think from that very first phone call that we got to have, she was so, intentional of what, her goals and her dreams were. And it was really a perfect match for, how we develop here at Maryland, the number of pros that we put into the professional ranks. And, she voiced that and everything she's, said she's done. She's put her head down and gone to work. And, I'm excited about this off season for her, one more year in our program to really fine tune the things that she's going to need, hopefully for the next level. We want to, hopefully make those dreams come true.
One thing I've always talked about when people ask me like what it's like just being at Maryland games, at the home games and watching, it was like, you seem to be very calm, cool, collected, very even keeled. There's not too much high, not too much low, but there was a moment during the tournament and the game against UNC where you and Oluchi shared a very passionate moment. It's a moment that both you and Oluchi since then have said, like, not really sure why it went viral, because this is just who we are. This is like status quo for us. But can you just kind of talk about like the relationship building that has to go into place from your end as the coach to be able to have a moment like that and it not, negatively affect the player that you're pouring into so passionately in that way?
Yeah, I think, it's probably been one of my superpowers, to be quite honest, in coaching, is just being able to read a room and within our student athletes and, being able to try to pull out of them what they need. And every student athlete's different. I can't coach every single player like I can with Oluchi, but Oluchi has also voiced, coach me hard. Like and we had numerous times during the season and in practices, and you kind of learn what each player can handle within a practice. I know for me, those are my games, is utilizing in practice, what buttons I can push to motivate, and, motivate meaning in a healthy, positive way, because I believe in each and every one of our players. And, for Oluchi and I, that was built back in that very first phone call and through the body of our work within the season. And so we were surprised because, that's who we've been all season, is she wants to be the best. She knew she was struggling in that game. And, I'm just proud of her for one, receiving it, but, just, the fact that I could see that moment and what she needed, and the rest was history. You saw her go back out on the floor and just completely she needed kind of that, that wake up call. And you saw, her just go out and play to the level that she knows she's capable of playing at.
You've referred to Oluchi a couple times in post-game pressers, pre-game pressers, just a bunch of different ways. She's been the head of the snake for you guys this year, just from the press to just her aggression, her ability to kind of just do what needs to be done for you guys to be successful. When you look at the transition now from the first year in the program to now next year, what are some things that you think that we can expect to see from her in her final year of college eligibility, in her second year with you at Maryland next year?
I think, it's going to be scary. Just the fact that you're going to already see a comfortable and confident Oluchi that knows the system, knows what to expect. She's always, her motor is always going to jump off the page. And I think, for us, it's fine tuning that extra area. We've got to consistently get her 3-point shot down. It's a beautiful shot. And so increasing those percentages is going to be really important. And then, hopefully we're going to have a really healthy, strong roster. So, she's going to, be assisting on more baskets. She's got to, she's got to have those players around her and being able to not only get downhill and be able to score it, which we needed so much this year, but the hope is that we're going to have 4 more dynamic players around her. So it's going to be more evenly spread, so she can really showcase her passing ability and her ability to make the right play at the right time.
What I'd like to do is just a quick hitting, quick fire segment. I've got every name of the roster from this year, active, not active. Would you be able to just give me one word to describe each player as we just go down the list of the roster?
Sure.
First name up is Kayleen Schmeichel.
Competitor.
Sailor Poffenbarger.
Shooter.
Mira McLean.
There's so many to choose from, because I want to use more than one word. Let's see. Defender. I'm going to say defensive prowess, but defender.
Okay. Bree McDaniel.
Banger.
Yarden Garzone.
Competitor.
Izzy Ozzy Mamadou.
Rebounder.
Oluchi Okananwa.
Motor.
Ava McKinney.
You only giving me one word, because I'm like sweet, unselfish.
Brianna Williams.
I thought we had her.
Brianna Williams?
Yeah, or was that Bree McDaniel?
That was Bree McDaniel.
Oh, I was thinking Brianna Williams. Williams was banger. Bree McDaniel, I messed up.
That's okay.
Bree McDaniel is fiery.
Rainey Wilson.
Shooter.
Kendall Walker.
Calm.
Addie Mack.
Oh. Spicy.
Really? Oh,
sweet, okay. But there's a lot of there's a lot behind that sweetness.
Mario Boyko.
Oh. Let's say depth.
Leah Bartelme.
Oh. Intelligent.
And last but not least, Nicole Fertea. Hope I said her last name right there.
Sweet.
That's so one thing I just loved about this season, you talk about the depth of the roster, right? But when you talk about the freshmen, I mean, Kendall, Addie, Maria, Leia, Ava, I know they missed the rest of the season due to the ACL injury, but that's a really strong group of freshmen there. And you got a lot of production, especially from Addie and Kendall as the season progressed. Can you talk about what you loved about the two of them together the most of the season, how they can continue to build on that for the rest of their collegiate careers?
Yeah, I think anytime you have two dynamic point guards and you have that versatility, it's huge. I mean, you can slide them around all over the court. You're getting two, point guards that have a really high IQ, and the sky's the limit. That's what I love, is that there were many opportunities when we could play them together, and within our system, we our transition is so up tempo, and I thought both of them, really were able to help each other. If someone was taking a lot of pressure, they could offset that, and you wouldn't have to feel that throughout the course of the season. But just the growth for both of them to come in as freshmen, the conference is so tough and so extreme. And, I thought they did a really good job of staying the course and, really growing within the season.
From the freshman duo of Addie and Kendall to the senior duo of Yarden and Saylor, who are hopefully in 12 days going to hear their names called in the WNBA draft. For those who maybe aren't super duper familiar with Saylor and Yarden's games, what is it about them individually that you think makes them just ready to excel at the next level?
Oh, they put a ton of time into their games. I mean, to see them just, as our season has ended, they've been in the gym like they always are, training and working out and making sure they stay in elite level shape. They've been with our strength coach, and, that's what those two have always, why they've been able to make their games the way they are. I mean, they're, elite shooters, didn't unfortunately show that in their last game of the season, which was disappointing. But, throughout the course of our season, I mean, they would stretch the floor for us. Really high IQs by both of them, play the game the right way, always going to leave everything on the floor, and, just know how to win. And that's, some great, qualities and characteristics when you talk about playing at the next level.
You mentioned earlier, the Terps have put in a number of just high level talent into the WNBA, right? Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Jones, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough, Diamond Miller, Shakira Austin, and Angel Reese. They both had 2 years with you before they transferred and then went to the WNBA. Can you talk a bit about kind of how that speaks to the greatness of the Terps program? Because I feel like sometimes we talk about some of the best programs in the country, your program's overlooked a little bit, but the proof is in the pudding as it relates to just the number of high quality pro ready talent that you guys are sending to the WNBA.
Yeah, exactly. I think the proof is already out there, and with the in my 24 years, 23 pros, and we're very intentional here. With our player development, I put it up against anyone in the country, and and it's every position. Like you just alluded to, a lot of names, whether you're that point guard of Christy Tolliver, to the point forward of Alyssa Thomas, the center of Brianna Jones, Diamond Miller, number 2 draft pick. So, I think, I know the GMs and the coaches, they know that our players present really well as pros, because, we work that out in our program. Like we're not going to deal with, nonsense and drama. And oftentimes that's why players that want that, do leave this program, to be quite honest, because we're going to show you how to be a pro, and that's, on the court, that's off the court, and we do it in a really healthy way. And our players are really happy, the ones that play here and are developed.
Sorry to break up this video. Just wanted to pop in real quick and say thank you for watching and supporting. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe to Basketball Society and stay tapped in with more of our basketball content on YouTube.
Talking about Alyssa Thomas for just a bit. A little while ago, Martin and I it was like a year or so ago, we had Lauren Mincy on the show, and we talked to her a bit about just some of the toughest players she's had to guard. And she went on a strong, I think, like 2-3 minutes about Alyssa Thomas, talking about how like the Alyssa Thomas that we see in the WNBA is not the Alyssa Thomas that you guys had at Maryland way back when. Can you just kind of talk about not just what makes Alyssa Thomas so great, but also like who really was Alyssa Thomas in college for those who have no idea what that looked like?
Well, again, I mean, gentle giant when you talk about how quiet she is and observes everything, but you put her into anything that's competitive, whether it's on the court, off the court. She is the most relentless competitor that I've ever coached. And that's to being one of the first to go get a basketball off the rack to first in everything. And, that's who she's been. That's why she's had a long career, why she's been, an Olympian when you talk about just her play. But she walks it in every phase of life.
Yeah. And then again, I know you only had 2 years with her, but did you know when you had Angel for those 2 years that she would turn into this just transcendent superstar that she has become over the last couple of years?
Oh, no question. I mean, she was always someone who was so talented, the ability to, have those double doubles when you talk about scoring and rebounding and, always, again, was someone who was really fiery, really competitive. You never had to guess what she was thinking because she was going to tell you. But she, had a really, she was really talented all the way out of, when you talk about from high school and her AAU days.
Yeah. So again, hate to put you on the spot, and I don't want to get you in any trouble with anybody, but there's a lot of really good Terps, a lot of really great Terps that have come out of your program since you've been there the last 24 years. If you could give me a Mount Rushmore of women's basketball Terps that you've had the pleasure of coaching, what would that Mount Rushmore look like for you?
Wow, that is a really hard question. I mean, your point guard would be, Tolliver, no question, just the way she could shoot the ball and how she was in clutch moments. I'd have to say, but, obviously Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Jones. I mean, Alyssa's the most decorated player to ever come through here with her versatility. And then, you throw like, Diamond Miller, number 2 draft pick and what she was able to do. And, you probably, if you went way back when, of that national championship team, I mean, you had, Marissa Coleman as well. Shea Duran was your culture glue type of player that was in there. And then you can't forget Crystal Langhorne. I mean, that starting 5 was pretty special.
You mentioned the national championship team, and this is the 20-year anniversary of that team. There were a couple of different celebrations over the course of the year commemorating that. But if I'm not mistaken, that championship was won 4 years into your time at Maryland. Did you, one, expect to be winning a national championship 4 years into your career? And then two, the journey to get back to that point. What has that been like for you over the last, 20 years since?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll say when I first got to Maryland, I was a 30-something-year-old coach that was just hoping that Maryland would extend me with a contract. I wasn't, yes, I had big dreams and goals of a national championship one day, but to say in 4 years that we would be there in a total rebuild and still kind of learning who I was as a young head coach, it was my, third move in 4 years. And I was still really kind of developing my identity and my philosophy. And then, obviously you see how hard the game is. I mean, we got to the Final Fours in 14 and 15, but, it's really got to line up, the right way. We felt like even this year we had a Final Four roster, and I said it in the preseason that we were going to need to stay healthy and, lost our entire backcourt. So, there's a lot of things that the margin for error is very slim. I mean, we saw that in the men's game between the Duke UConn game, and you got to have the right matchups in tournament play. But I think that the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that we've just sustained a really high level of excellence and consistency. And, again, most people would probably be really excited to, win 24 games with, losing 4 players to season-ending injuries off their roster, and 4 very impactful players. So, you just continue to put your head down and, continue to hopefully show consistency, because I think it's harder and harder to do when your rosters change, every year.
Now, when you guys won that championship, you guys were a member of the ACC. Obviously, now we're in the Big Ten. Are there what are some of the major differences you're noticing, but have noticed, whether it's been just like the talent on the floor, coaching styles, that has kind of allowed you to maintain the success since transitioning from the ACC to the Big Ten?
Just the depth of the conference. I mean, you can't really even compare them anymore, because, we have 18 teams, and, these players now are going through a gauntlet when you talk about the number of teams you face and games and travel. The distances are nowhere near the same. And, yes, I mean, there's a lot of money now in these programs, and every head coach can coach, every coach can scout. They know how to take your weaknesses away. And so it's at such a higher level. And that goes as well with the players. Players on the rosters are really, really talented and have been playing for a long time. So, just a lot of areas when you talk about for these student athletes that, you play 18 conference games and there's no breath to relax. There's not an easy game that you're going to face in those 18 conference games.
If we could just take a step back outside of just the coaching and kind of talk just a bit about Brenda Frese, the person. How did we end up as one of the best coaches in the country? Well, and what I mean by that is kind of your journey in the world of basketball. How did that start for you?
I think, just through the love of the game, when I think back to, how much I just fell in love with the game. And it was really when I played at Arizona and had season injuries that really kind of got my lens looking at the college level to want to coach. And so, I was really fortunate to, the doors that opened up for me, the steps that I was able to make, the timing, where everything was at. I'm really fortunate for the steps of how they were ordered and what I was able to do with each and every one of them. And so, you just kind of evolve. Like I said, when I did the 3 moves in 4 years as a head coach, that wasn't easy. I went from, Ball State for 2 years, then Minnesota, and then Maryland. And, I just kept saying, I just want to stay somewhere where I can, that's it. Right. And now you look back and it's been 24 years. And I think when you have a growth mentality, 1, you can't be afraid to work. And, 2, when you have a growth mentality, luckily, I've always been that way. I love to learn. I want to learn something new every single day from someone or something. And, I think those are the things that keep you fresh within what you're trying to do. And then the last thing I would say is just people, relationships. That's been the single most thing I think that, I've always been as a player, a teammate, coach, a mom. People are the ones that make the world go round. And I think that's been probably the biggest thing why I'm in this profession.
When you're not coaching, when you're not scouting, making hundreds of thousands of phone calls in the transfer portal, what are some things outside of basketball that bring you joy and add some spunk and some extra oomph to you?
Well, clearly, anytime I get to spend with my family, and my twins now are 18, and, those are few and far between because they're so active, but, being able to support them. And, then individually for me, I love pickleball. A lot of people know that. I mean, it just puts me on a high. It's like playing basketball when you can't play basketball anymore. You're too old. So, I love anything that's active, weight training, pickleball, and then stimulating my mind. I love to read, watch shows, but, reading is probably, next. If just need more time. I mean, I feel like that's the one that, until I get to the off season, then I get back to the time I get to spend reading.
Are your twins identical, or are they fraternal?
Fraternal.
Oh, so they've never done like a switcheroo on you or anything back in the day?
No, they can't do that.
I'm supposed to be a twin, and man, I feel like just one good switcheroo would have done me good back when I used to get into some stuff. But so they're 18 and you've been very active and they've been very active. Do they also play sports? Are they basketball kids, or did they decide elsewhere for their?
Yeah. One is high level track, runs 800s, 400s, and then the other one plays basketball. So yeah, they're I love it. They're in sports. They're around athletes and the learning so many great life lessons.
My last question for you is, it seems like, despite all of the greatness that we have seen from the world of women's basketball, the college level, the high school level, even the WNBA level and beyond, right? There are still just people out here who do not give women's basketball the respect that it deserves, and it's just due. What would we like to call it trolling the trolls, but you are such a much more classier individual. Maybe you're not going to troll them, but if you just could take a moment, if there was one thing you could say to those people who are just consistently downing women's basketball, what would that one thing?
I'm going to go the opposite. I probably wouldn't say anything because it doesn't. I mean, what they have to say doesn't impact me or anyone else for 2 seconds. I think that's what they want. And, I wouldn't give them that shine because clearly I would, I'm kind of sad for them that they don't understand, how much is going on in women's basketball. And, that's where the sadness would come, is that they're just missing a great opportunity of watching this great sport. And so I would focus on the ones that love and are passionate, and let all those trolls go about their trolling ways and hit on all the sites that they want to hit. I mean, I always tell our student athletes, like, when you have an anonymous name behind your Twitter page, that doesn't really, mean too much if they're not someone that you value of worth.
Yeah. Well, again, Coach, I appreciate your time today. It's been a great talking with you. I know we've had some moments over the course of the season, but just to be able to sit down with you and talk for the last couple minutes has been great. I do appreciate it. I wish you all the best of luck with the transfer portal. I hope you get back to your reading and your pickleball over the course of the offseason. And I look forward to seeing you guys or seeing you at the beginning of next season as well.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Looking forward to it.